Mike Laurie.
Hey everybody, we are live, and thank you very much for joining me with the already legendary Seth Henderson of Highlight Hendo Network. Raider fan, how you doing, man? Great to have
Doing
you.
good. Just trying to catch up with some of these rules here. You know what I mean? Lots of interesting stuff that they got on the ballot. So I want to see what's going to get passed and what's going to pass on and just be dust in the wind.
Hey, I'm glad you said that. In fact, let's see what is on the actual hearing. First of all, I want to start by thanking the National Football League for allowing Zenny 62 Media to live stream this press event. It's a media briefing, but it's really a press conference, and a lot of press conferences are live streamed. Why not this one? And so I thought, hey, I asked, and I said to Brian, well, my face is going to be in it. It's not going to be like I'm just showing the thing. So it's for fair use, from a fair use legal perspective. And he said fine. And that's what launched it. That's what got us out here. Okay, so that's not what I'm looking for there. It's the other one. And so let me stop that screen and give it the other. Let me write us, and then give the other one in the area that's open. And it's this one, that one. There it is. Now, obviously, these words are a little small, but through the magic of the Firefox browser, we're going to make them bigger and bigger and even bigger. And if possible, even bigger. And it is. Boom. Okay. So let's go back to number one. And what we have first is by Detroit amends Rule 15, Section 1, Article 1 to protect a club's ability to challenge a third ruling following one successful challenge. That's the first one. It will go more in depth because there's more below this, okay? Number two, by Philadelphia, which amends Rule 9, Section 2, Article 2 to eliminate the first touch spot after the receiving team possesses the ball. That's interesting. That sounds interesting. Number three, by Philadelphia, amends Rule 5, Section 1, Article 1, to permit a team to maintain possession of the ball after a score by substituting one offensive play, 4th and 20 from the kicking team's 20-yard line for an offside kickoff attempt. I'll come back to it later. I know it sounds a little wordy. I'll come back to it later. By Indianapolis, amends Rule 15, Section 3, to permit a coach or replay official inside of 2 minutes to challenge any foul that's been called. I think this was on originally a few years ago. Now it's back. Good. That would I don't expect that to pass, but let's just get through this. 5, by Competition Committee, amends Rule 14, Section 5, Article 2, to allow for an enforcement of a major foul by the offense prior to a change of possession in a situation where there are fouls by both teams. 6, Competition Committee amends Rule 15, Section 3, Article 3 to include a ruling of a passer down by contact or out of bounds before throwing a pass as a reviewable play. 7, by Competition Committee, amends Rule 15, Section 3, Article 9 to allow a replay review when there is clear and obvious visual evidence that the game clock expired before any snap. Rule 8, by Competition Committee, amends Rule 12, Section 2 to eliminate a potentially dangerous tackling technique. Number 9, by Competition Committee, amends Rule 12, Section 2, Article 6 to expand the crackback prohibition to players who go in motion and move beyond the center to block a defender at or below the knee. 10. By competition committee, 1 year only, amends Rule 6 to create a new form of a free kick play that is designed to, 1, resemble a typical scrimmage play by aligning players on both teams closer together and restricting movement to reduce space and speed. And 2, promote more returns. Permit the replay official automatically permits the replay official to automatically review whether a free kick legally touched the ground or a receiving team player in the landing zone. Some of these, they leave conjunctions out, so you have to literally fill in the conjunctions as you go along. NFL playing rules. This is number 1. Okay, what do you? These are looking pretty interesting. Let me take a coffee sip break real quick and grab my coffee, which is here, and then go get to it. And it is 2:16. So we may not get to all of these, but we'll get to most of them. All right. Is that a beer you're popping? I heard us.
Oh no, it's just water.
Oh, okay.
It's only 11 in the morning over here.
Well, hey, man, I've been out with women who like to go to bars at 6 in the morning. So, yeah.
Man, I haven't had a bar at 6 a.m., but I've definitely been drinking beers at 10 a.m. before.
Oh, I mean, that's a long time ago in my past, boy. Never again to be seen. Never again to be seen. All right. Okay, so, hey, welcome, everybody. How you doing? We're going through the first playing rule. This one is NFL Playing Rules 2024 Playing Rule Proposal number 1, which again is amend Rule 15, Section 1, Article 1, new language underlined, delete language struck through. Section 1, initiating a replay review. Article 1, coaches' challenges. Each team is permitted a minimum of 2 challenges that will initiate an instant replay review. A, the head coach can initiate a challenge by throwing a red flag onto the field of play before the next legal snap or kick. We've seen that before, right? Right, Seth?
Mm-hmm.
B, a team that commits a foul that prevents the next snap can no longer challenge the previous play. Ooh, that's kind of dirty. Let me read that again. A team that commits a foul that prevents the next snap can no longer challenge the previous play. Sometimes that's like going to jail, you know?
Yeah, but then in the next sentence it says the non-fouling team can still challenge the previous play and both teams can benefit. So if the play was very if it was like a coin toss type of play, the non-fouling team might still want to challenge it, and it could work out for both teams.
But suppose the opposing coach hates you and doesn't want, and doesn't want.
Then yeah, you're totally screwed.
Exactly.
I guess it's trying to promote good relationships within the NFL. Make better friends.
Yeah, fat chance with that one. C, the head coach may challenge on-field rulings listed in Section 3 except for those plays that only the replay official can challenge. Article 2. That's okay. And then each challenge requires an available team timeout. A team that is out of timeouts or has used all its available challenges may not attempt to initiate a challenge. A team that initiates a challenge when the team is not permitted to challenge will be charged a timeout. The penalty will be for initiating a challenge when a team has exhausted its timeouts. Loss of 15 yards. I can't see that passing. What do you think? I mean, I'll continue because that's only part of the whole, folks. I'm sorry. E, if a challenge is unsuccessful, the team will be charged a timeout. F, a team will be permitted a third challenge if it is successful on at least one of both of its challenges. A fourth challenge will not be permitted. Submitted by Detroit. Effect: protects a club's ability to challenge a third ruling following one successful challenge. Reason: integrity of the game. What do you think about that one?
I mean, the premise of it, of if you win one and you're not charged the timeout, you kind of are awarded that third challenge. And I mean, regardless if you fail your second one, it doesn't say anything about if you lose your second challenge, then you don't get the third. It's just, you just have to win one of them. So you can win the first one, lose the second one, and still get a third, or lose your first challenge, win the second challenge, and get a third. And I think sometimes it makes complete sense why Detroit is making this or requesting this proposal, because you know how
sir.
how Mr. Campbell loves to throw that red challenge flag around. But there's been a lot of instances, I think, that another challenge has been warranted, where like it's an egregious play or something, and it just kind of gets brushed over, and the other team knows it, and they're trying to just kind of roll over to the next snap so they don't have an opportunity. And I think it seems like Dan Campbell's got something up his sleeve where he's trying to get that opportunity. He wants that next opportunity to challenge so that he can't be wronged again. It feels like this is his chance to redeem himself.
You mean like a tit for tat situation?
No, I'm saying like maybe he feels like he lost a game or two because he didn't get to challenge one more time. If he had just had one more challenge, a game could have went a different way. And he feels like, again, for this reason down there at the bottom, integrity of the game, probably him just not feeling like it was fair, to not be able to challenge.
Yeah, that makes sense. So moving along, it's 222. We've got the next one. Thank you for that summation. NFL Playing Rules 2024 Playing Rule Proposal Number 2. Amend Rule 9, Section 2, Article 2. New language underlined, deleted language struck through. Article 2. First touching beyond the line. First touching is when a player of the kicking team touches a scrimmage kick in the field of play that is beyond the line of scrimmage. So let's say the kicking team kicks it, all right? And then that player touches it beyond the line of scrimmage before it's touched by a player of the receiving team. If the ball is first touched by a player of the kicking team, it remains in play. First touching is a violation, and the receiver shall have the option of taking possession of the ball, and should say receiver, of course, of the receiving team, shall have the option of taking possession of the ball at the spot of the first touching. Provided the ball is not possessed by the receiving team, and or no live ball penalty is accepted on the play. So, but this basically does, Seth, is it punishes anybody. Let me finish reading this. I love this. I love this. The ball is not possessed by the receiving team, and or no live ball penalty is accepted on the play, or at the spot where the ball is dead. Let me read this part. Receiver shall have the option on the receiving team of taking possession of the ball at the spot of the first touching. Okay? In other words, the first touching by the opposing team, the team that's the kicking team. I'm reading that right?
And I mean, when they said first touching,
yeah, first touching beyond is when the player of the kicking team touches the scrimmage kick. So this deals with the kicking team. So the kicking team is kicked it. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And the receiving team, the rule is that the ball is not possessed, provided it says the receiver shall have the option on the team that's going to receive it taking possession of the ball at the spot or first touching, provided the ball is not possessed by the receiving team and or no live ball penalty is accepted on the play, or at the spot where the ball is dead. First touching does not offset a foul by the receivers. If there's a live ball foul by the receivers that is enforced, either before or after the touching violation or any changes of possession, the violation is disregarded and the penalty is enforced as customary. Notes: if the receiving team gains possession, subsequently loses possession, and fouls after the kicking team gains possession, the spot or first touching is disregarded, and the kicking team retains possession. Enforcement of the receiving team's foul is as customary. There may be multiple touch first spots, or rather, if the kicking team touches the ball multiple times before it's touched by a player of the receiving team. 2. A Team B player is deemed not to have touched a kick if such touching occurs in the immediate vicinity of the line in an attempt to block the kick. Now, what the heck does immediate vicinity of the line means? 3. If a player of the kicking team touches the goal line with any part of his body while touching the ball is dead, and the result of the play is a touchback. Okay. Says please rate the webinar will begin soon. All right. It is 2:27. This is, I think the webinar, I think the room is heating up already. So let me keep an eye on that, folks. All right. Because they may be starting a little bit early. Then it says the spot of first touching is normally the yard line at which the ball is touched. If the first touching occurs while the ball is in the air above the goal line and prior to the ball touching the goal line or ground beyond the goal line, the spot of first touching is deemed to be the spot from which the touching player left the field of play, but in no event inside the receiving team's 1 yard line. It's submitted by Philadelphia. Effect eliminates the first touch spot after the receiving team possesses the ball. Reason, player safety. What do you think about this one? So I can't see this one passing. And the reason I can't is it's just too damn complicated.
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
and I'm not buying the player safety. How is it for player safety?
And what's the vicinity of the line of scrimmage? I mean, that's not defined. This is one of those rules that needs its own mini lexicon. You know, like in law cases, you have a lexicon. You need a lexicon to define exactly what vicinity means in this instance. I mean, does that mean, a yard, 2 yards, 10 yards?
And then, and then the second part of the notes where it says there may be multiple first touch spots if the kicking team touches the ball multiple times before it's touched by a player of the receiving team.
Yeah, and I can see that.
I'm not buying it.
I hear you. I totally hear you.
I mean, it's complicated enough.
Yeah, it's complicated, and then I'm stuck on the whole vicinity deal. I mean, if you can't define what vicinity is, that in and of itself is going to cause a lot of problems. You have to get that out of the way. That's too confusing. What's the vicinity? The whole field?
I know, yeah, like in the vicinity of the line of scrimmage or the line.
It said the line of scrimmage. That's the thing. But, there's only one line, right? So my point is, given the length of a standard kicking formation, does that mean the kicker is within the vicinity? Right? Since he's kicking, right? So, it's like, ugh. All right, onward through the fog, because this definitely is a fog, folks. NFL playing rules proposal number 3. Amend Rule 6, Section 1, Article 1. New language underlined, deleted language struck through. Article 1, free kick. A free kick is a kickoff or safety kick that puts the ball in play to start a free kick down. It must be made from any point on the kicking offensive team's restraining line and between the inbounds lines. A kickoff puts the ball in play at the start of each half. After a try and after a successful field goal, a drop kick or place kick may be used for a kickoff. Notes: during a place kick on a kickoff, the kicking team may use a manufactured tee that is 1 inch in height and approved by the league. Once the ball has been placed on the kicking tee cannot be moved. If the ball falls off the tee or the tee is moved, the covering officials must stop play and restart the timing process without penalty to the kicking team. If the ball falls out of the tee or off the tee a second time during the same free kick down, the kicking team must then must either use a player to hold the ball or must kick it off the ground. The ball may be placed on the ground leaning against the tee, provided the tee is in its normal upright position. B, a safety kick puts the ball in play after a safety. A drop kick, place kick, or punt may be used for a safety kick. A tee cannot be used for a safety kick. C, as an alternative to a kickoff after a touchdown or a successful field goal, a team, which is the scoring team, may elect to retain possession subject to the following rules. A team may elect to retain possession not more than 2 times during the game. It must have fewer points than its opponent. The scoring team must The scoring team must notify the referee of its intention to forego a kickoff and retain possession. The referee will then notify the opponent of the scoring team's election. The ball will be spotted on the scoring team's 20-yard line, and the scoring team will possess the ball with the down and distance being 4th and 20. Line to gain is the scoring team's 40-yard line. If either team commits a personal foul during the preceding score, the spot of the kickoff alternative is the succeeding spot if the penalty is not enforced on the try. See 14.2.3. Play clock will be set to 25 seconds and wins on the ready for play signal. Game clock starts on the snap and normal NFL timing rules apply. Standard rules apply from a play from scrimmage. If the offense reaches the line to gain, the result of the play is a first down, and all customary rules, including timing rules, are in effect. If the offense fails to reach the line to gain, or if the defense scores on the play, which goes the other way, customary rules for a change of possession on a scoring play are in effect. If the offense is penalized on the 1 scrimmage down, 4th and 20, the offense cannot elect to then kick off after the penalty is enforced. Example: the kicking team may not elect to kick after incurring a holding penalty on the 1 scrimmage down, and scrimmage kicks are prohibited. Nothing in this exception prohibits a team from attempting a legal onside kickoff under Rule 6. Penalty for illegal kick or free kick down, loss of 5 yards. That's submitted by Philadelphia. How come Philadelphia always submits these wordy, long, doggone rules changes? Effect permits a team to maintain possession of the ball after a score by substituting 1 offensive play, 4th and 20, from the kicking team's 20-yard line for an onside kickoff attempt. Reason: competitive equity and fan engagement. I don't get the competitive equity part. What do you think? This is probably the last one we're going to be able to evaluate before things get started. But what do you think, Seth? We got a hard stop at 2:40. because it starts at 2:45. But let's just play it through. What do you think, Seth?
Well, I think it was a little confusing because it felt like some stuff was contradictory in the rules, and I think because at the top it says, and for every one that we've gone over, it's been a little confusing because it says new language underlined and deleted language struck through, but there's nothing underlined or struck through, so I don't know what's new and what's not.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, is because when I copy pasted it, it's a document, and the actual document has that. So that didn't come through in the copy paste version. So the actual document I'll put on Scribd so that other people can get a copy of it and see it. But I think that would probably help. In fact, I'll do that right now. As I think about it, because it's in Adobe right now. All I have to do is upload it to Scribd. But go ahead. What about your evaluation? I don't want to have too much downtime here.
Well, it seemed like because I remember the man who I don't like to name, Josh McDaniels, had a funny little rule bend for the kicking game in kind of doing what was mentioned down there of the kicking the ball off the ground but leaning it up against the tee. And the Raiders did that for like 2 or 3 games, and then they actually got in trouble for doing that. So that's where I got like really confused. I wasn't sure if which part they were striking out or which part was being added. So I don't know. I couldn't tell if they were adding in that you could do that, or if the rule had been in there and we just didn't execute it properly.
Yeah, I think I just go with, like, if something is being suggested, I just go with what's written and ask, does that make sense? Right? Because otherwise you can confuse yourself really quickly by going back over what was struck out and then reading that and like, does it, it's simple. It's the keep it simple, stupid, right?
Right. Well, like the struck out stuff, I would ignore. I'm like, I don't know which information to ignore here. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let me help you. I would just simply go with what they're suggesting. That's it. In other words, what's written on the printed page there is what they intend to put in. Now, forget what they're striking out, because they're trying to strike it out, right? So the question is, does that rule in and of itself as an instrument make any sense? That's how I look. That's me. That's how I look at it after years of going through this. It's like, okay, is what there's forget what's being replaced. Is what they're saying makes sense? Because, in fact, let's point it this way: forget what they're talking about replacing. Does what they want to put in on its own make any sense? Is it the appropriate change? That's how I look at it. Because each of these are instruments. The rules, instruments unto themselves. You know what I mean? Again, that's how I look at it.
I think the free kick is a little unnecessary. And then again, if we're gonna change that other rule for the kicking game for player safety, why are we now changing this other rule to add more kicking if it's so dangerous?
Well, so here's the thing. Each one of these rules is a world unto themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to think in a more cohesive way. Like,
don't you'll screw yourself up, because each one of some of these things are put in by coaches just to play around, because they want to test an idea. They have no idea. Okay, it has nothing.
I'm not talking about if the rule was passed. I'm just talking about the idea, like the general census is the kicking game is dangerous. So if the general consensus is the kicking game is dangerous, I don't think adding a free kick to put the ball in play to start a free kick down.
I get you. Yeah, I get you. It makes sense.
Because the way the NFL is structured right now, it's a passing game. Where everybody wants to see the passing game. That's what's exciting. So if you're talking about crowd engagement, you know what I mean, then throw the damn ball. Don't kick it. You know,
Yeah,
if
exactly.
we want to see the punt return because we barely saw any of them last season, but that doesn't mean we need more kicks in the game. You know, just let the kicks happen naturally. We don't need to.
You mean like just for kicks, right? I couldn't resist. Could not resist.
Well, I don't know. What do you think about it?
I'm not sure it's needed. I don't. Well, it's not. No. So let me put it this way. I'm sure it's not needed. Let me put it that. Let me be more definite. Not wussy about it. I'm not sure it's needed. Now, by the way, what is needed is the script version of the playing rules, which now, folks, I've installed, and I will install in an updated version of what we're going through on Zenny62 YouTube. It is 2:41 now, and I expect the webinar to begin literally any second now. So we won't miss a beat. What'll happen is I'll just simply switch the screens over. In fact, let me do this. Since I'm going to have to switch screens over anyway, let me prematurely do that because it is now headed to 2:42. That's 3 minutes off, okay? So I'm going to stop this screen of the rules presentation now, put us up like that, and then I'm going to stop that screen, and then I'm going to go and look for, which should be the Zoom screen. I don't see it yet. All right, I don't see it yet. So I'll just let that go since it's not happening yet. And yeah, and keep an eye on it. So that would take me to, just please wait. In a minute, that goes away. So, but this is a lot of fun. I'm glad they do this. They also done this at league meetings, and this is in a sense a preview. This will also be at the league meeting. Bill Belichick was notable for throwing in that rule that just sort of tested your intellect. He had no intention of having it passed.
Mm-hmm.
He would just toss it in. Sometimes it'd be obnoxious.
Oh yeah.
Now I don't see any evidence that Jared Mayo is that guy, unfortunately, this time. But still, good. The league will miss Bill Belichick for the amount of time that he's out of the head coaching role. And maybe he's just retired. I don't know. What do you think, Seth?
Bill? I mean, yeah, Bill needs to get on TV or something. He's everybody wants to hear Bill talk. Everybody loves hearing Bill talk. So if somebody wants to get their ratings up, get Bill on their show, and if you can get him to say even just 2 words in a 30-minute segment, I'm sure he'd still get millions of viewers.
Yeah, so it's a great point made.
And the game's changing. Coaches are essentially getting younger, if that makes any sense. And I mean, Nick Saban's kind of moved on. I feel like the football's definitely changing in a way. The way with NIL deals, the way players are. You hear a lot of old school coaches talking about the players aren't really in it, for the game. They don't really love the game. They're in it for the money and the fame and the popularity and the bragging rights and all the stuff that never really used to matter.
Here's the guy. Okay, I'll be 62 this year. Zenny 62. Appropriately for the first time in my life, right? And here's why I think that whole idea is a crock. Literally. Not that they don't believe that, but what they forget is it's that way that got us to where we are right now. Because you have far too many black players being exploited for their on-the-field exploits and nothing, and not getting a good education. There was a Redskins defensive end, who was the Washington Redskins at the time, and went to Oklahoma. Darnell, his name flew right out of my mind. But at any rate, he was the linchpin example. Actually, was a focus of a news report about literally the quote advanced basket weaving level classes he was taking, and all to get him through school, and so that he could play for them. He never saw a dime of the money. Now, then of course there's the famous example of Reggie Bush, and I actually met Reggie Bush's marketing agent guy. Reggie rightly wanted to achieve some wealth for the amount of time USC spent promoting him, but then pocketing the money. And that was substantial. And it's not right to do. You can't do that in any other walk of life. You can't do that with a movie star. You cannot do that with a lawyer. You can't do that with anybody that works in such a way where their exposure equals income, and yet they're not seeing a dime of it. And that's exactly what's going on with these players.
Well, I don't think the NIL deals are a problem. I don't think that the players shouldn't get paid. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just think that
That's what you were saying. I was talking about the coaches.
I think the game itself is just changing in a way where people are. It's more individualized. There's people are focusing on the stars and the whole mentality behind the team, the mentality behind the game, and what each team is. That's why I hold so close to the Raiders, because I feel like they're a very historical franchise that really, appreciates their historic values. And there's other great teams like the Packers, and the idea is to be a team player. I feel like Devontae Adams is the epitome of team player. Max Crosby, team player. Max Crosby, he only wants to be a Raider. He doesn't want to go nowhere else. But
here's as an old Raider, okay? The Raiders were born with the objective of taking your cast-offs. And they were known for starting a player as a black quarterback that somebody else would put as a DB, and so on. But also, they were known as renegades. They were known as, well, like family friend, Otis Sistrunk, University of Mars. Met him our living room, 1975. So my mom knew him. I had no interest in football. I was into Star Trek, physics, science. I was what I thought was my own black intellectual for a whole host of reasons that would take an hour to talk about plus. And what I realized was that he was literally part of the town. He represented Oakland. And Oakland was that city that was quite really proud of its renegade Black Panther origins at the time. Not that saying there wasn't any pushback from the older white culture. There was. It's a very complicated time, but not nasty. Moving along, my point is this. The Raiders were known for, if there was somebody on your team they wanted, they went out and got them. When I was the commissioner of the AFL, he raided the NFL. He started the war that created the NFL today. Did that. So it's not, well, okay, it's not like Dallas Cowboys are known from building from within. And I had the honor of actually going to the Cowboys office in 1979 at 6116 North Central Expressway because I had a question about the Seahawks defense. They invited me down, and as the Lord would have it, my mom was able to get me down there, and the rest is history. So I've seen both sides at the same time, and the Raiders are very much about building a renegade culture. They were the bikers. They were the people who loved being outcasts. Not that they just loved it. The Cowboys were about glitz and glam, and the cheerleaders. And I had a Dallas Cowboys Weekly with the cheerleaders in the middle. I admit that, because that was every red-blooded American boy had that, right? And so, all right, and but the Cowboys were known for their drafts, for computerized scouting, for ushering the computer age in the NFL and the football. And so if you were interested in computer programming analysis, that attracted you. So that's the difference. I think the Raiders of today are very much the kind of Raiders that Al would be proud of, because they can go after those players if they want to, but they also have established their way. And I think that way can work in Las Vegas. I never didn't think it couldn't. My issues were with honesty and other stuff, but I believe it can work. It just needs the right amount of money, and now finally have got it. Whereas back home that was a problem. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now it's 2:50. They should have started. Let's see here. I'm still waiting for the webinar to start. They're late. Let's see what's going on, folks. They're late starting here. Let's see what's. Let's see here. Okay. This is 2:51. They were supposed to start at 2:45. It's still spinning. So test my speaker. Yep, that's working. Okay. Get rid of that. Go over here. Let's see here. Oh, I've got the media guide for the NFL annual meeting. That just came through the email. Thank you. I'll put that aside. And we're still waiting. Let's see here. Let's see here. Nope. No strange messages. No new text messages in the league. They quite literally are just waiting. Wait, let me check on Twitter. See if Brian's got something going there. At NFL PR guy.
Recording in progress.
Here we go. Okay, so there's that. So let me recenter this very quickly, folks. Okay, share screen, Zoom webinar. There it is. Okay. All right, cool. There we are. Folks, for those of you who don't know, Brian McCarthy is the spokesperson for the National Football League. So we're in and waiting. And waiting.
This might be a good time to grab a little snack.
Yummy. Oh, here we just as you said that, the screen changed. And there is Mr.
Right here.
Ready? We start. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Sorry for the technical difficulty on my side here at 3:45. We are looking forward to seeing many of you in the next couple of days for the league meeting in Orlando, which begins Sunday evening and is expected to conclude Tuesday afternoon. We wanted to provide a preview of the meeting with a focus today on the competition committee and health and safety agenda. You should have received yesterday the playing rule, bylaw, and resolution proposals, and we ask that you refer to them as we hear from Jeff, Troy Vincent, Rich McKay in his capacity as chair of the competition committee. They'll each make opening remarks, and then we'll take some questions using the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. The session is on the record, being recorded, and you may post in real time. Before we get to Jeff Miller, Mike Signora had a couple quick items.
Thanks, Brian. Yes, just a few things to note. So Monday morning from 7:45 to 8:15 a.m., we're going to have the AFC head coaches available to media in the JW Marriott Palazzo Ballroom, Salon E. So that's Monday morning, 7:45 to 8:15 a.m. with the AFC coaches. And then Tuesday morning from 7:45 to 8:15 a.m. will be the NFC head coaches in the same location, JW Marriott, Palazzo Ballroom, Salon E. And then we'll have media available. We'll have breakfast available for media following each session. You do need a credential to attend the media availabilities at the annual meeting. If you have not already applied for one, please email Cody Enos of our staff today so we can get that sorted out in advance. And then Monday night at 7 p.m., you are invited to attend the reception on the Da Vinci lawn of the Ritz-Carlton. As a reminder, and because we like seeing you at this party and we'd like to keep seeing all of you at this party, it is a party and not a photo or interview opportunity. So we would just remind you of that and just ask you to please respect that on Monday night at that reception at 7 p.m. With that, I will turn it over to Jeff Miller.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Brian. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Look forward to seeing many of you in Orlando next week. Troy and Rich are going to spend some time reviewing the competition committee outcomes, as you just heard, and club proposals in a minute. I'm happy to talk about the health and safety inputs that went into some of those decisions. Competition committee used a lot of data, as you have all become accustomed to at this point in making the decisions they made about potential rules proposals, including some from health and safety. And we can discuss those. More broadly, when we think about the league meeting next week, 2023 was a great year. Our focus is going to be beyond that and looking forward. So just to give you a top line on a couple of the topics we'll spend a lot of time on outside of the game, we'll discuss growing it. We'll discuss growing the game, both internationally with games coming up in Sao Paulo and then 2025, a game in Madrid, but other international markets and marketing opportunities for our clubs as our international fan base continues to grow year over year. That also means discussing flag football. And that's leading up, of course, to the Olympics in 2028, but also increasing state-sanctioned flag football here at home for both boys and girls as that game continues to take off and engendering a lot of interest. We'll discuss the changing media landscape. That, of course, will take a fair amount of time for us. While we're proud to have 94 of the top 100 shows this last season during the regular season, that is, we're going to spend a lot of time reviewing, too, our digital strategy. We've always said we need to find our fans where they are. And as our fans, especially our younger fans, are increasingly on digital platforms, we need to make sure that we are flexible enough to make football available to them. So we'll talk about Peacock and Amazon and YouTube and wherever we are going with those relationships in the coming years. Importantly, too, we're going to spend some time on DE&I as we do at all meetings. We'll review this hiring cycle. We'll talk about what we learned from it, what was good, what wasn't as good, and spend some time thinking about how to continue to make our game and our clubs as open to as many different people as we can, because that diversity, we believe, makes us stronger. So that's a lot in a very short period of time, as Brian laid out. But for now, we'll talk about competition committee and rules changes and take your questions in a minute. So with that, I will turn it over to Brian. We going to Rich or to Troy?
Let's go to Troy, who's joining us via cell phone. Troy?
Excellent. Troy, all you.
Yes, can my volume okay?
Yeah, you sound good.
Can you hear me? You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jeff. Let me begin also by just, I think it's important that I recognize the individuals that we've been working with since the Thursday after Super Bowl, where we would say the regular 2023 journey, or the 2024 off-season journey began with not only the competition committee, but the general managers advisory committee, the secret football, the player health and safety committee, our elections youth advisory committee, working with the NC2A, multiple position coaches, as well as the Players Association. You know, we closed the season out with a little over 41,600 plays. The work began Thursday after Super Bowl on the combine, meeting with individual position group coaches, 5 days of work at the combine, multiple, just countless hours of video. And we went to Fort Lauderdale last week, and we'll close out this week at the annual meeting. And I just think it's important to just give you just a little bit of just where we started post Super Bowl. discussions around ball through the end zone, the 35-second clock, just offensive play and production in particular, intentional grounding. Talk about offensive line play. The push play was something that was discussed over the last 2 years. Tackling education, just where we are with the crackback block. I think Jeff had referenced that. I always look at the QB protection, kickoff, obviously, and still spending time there. And then officiating. So this is kind of where we started, and I would just say closing out, and Chairman, and I know he's following me here. When we think about 10 playing rule proposals, 7 bylaws, and 3 resolutions as it pertains to the game, and just coming out of the competition committee meetings last week in Fort Lauderdale, the intentional grounding was the area that I feel like the committee just with consistency in those calls, the administration of that, that we feel like we will be able to address that inside of the situation. And replay this fifth. The crackback block, we continue to remove blocks that are just dangerous. And in particular, this one, low injury rate, but significant time loss when it occurs. We believe it's easy to officiate, to identify, and this is directly just establishing that block zone, keeping the actual block above the knee but below the neck, and then keeping protection. We also feel like with replay and replay assist, just getting consistency around protection of the calls, around being accurate and then efficient. But that protection zone, quarterback in the pocket, out of the pocket, was something that the committee spent a lot of time on. And then we talk about the hip drop and, just trying to explain that grab swivel and just that unweighting on the back of the leg, trapping and the unweighting on the back of the leg. And I'll just personally inject here. I felt like all of the committee is something that we want to get out the game, and I'll just keep going back 20 to 25 times X. We just have to be responsible. And as I would speak to the players, I would share this with any players as I talk to them on a daily basis. The greatest asset for any athlete is durability and availability. And when you have a play that has a 20 to 25X injury rate, it doesn't allow you to fulfill your dreams. So just something that the committee has spent a lot of time on, and membership will vote on that this coming week. And then the kickoff is something that I think Jeff alluded to this as well. Just a lot of time spent with the position coaches, Coach Hightower from Chicago, Coach Rizzi from New Orleans, and Coach Fossil from Dallas, and all of the special team coaches. About 60 coaches got together during combine and that's over the last year. Just trying to come up with an alternative that will be discussed at length, and then the membership will vote on that. And then lastly, I'll just close before I turn it over to the chairman, is officiating. And I think we were extremely, as we always are, extremely transparent and pointed. Crew consistency was the charge going into the 2023 campaign. Our ongoing efforts to identify and train and develop the on-field and replay officials. We saw significant improvement from Crew 1 to Crew 17 as it pertains to crew consistency. So we'll continue to train, identify good personnel. We're looking at better trainings to game day tests. But we're in a place where the competition committee feels our communication with the clubs, on-field officials for our plan going into the 2024 campaign. We feel solid about that. So I'll close with that before I turn it over to the chairman. Was there anything I missed, Tim?
Go ahead, Rich.
All right, thank you. No, Troy, that was great. I appreciate it. And again, like Troy said, hats off to all the people, first of all, that support the committee. There's a lot of people at the league office that support the committee. There's a lot of work. The GMAC, which is General Manager Advisory Committee, they do good work. They have a lot of input to us. The coaches subcommittee, led by Coach Reed, Super Bowl Coach Reed, has been invaluable to us. There's just a lot that goes into where we are. I just want to go back to where we start, which is, and we wrote it in the report this year, that our committee is always charged with the same thing, right? It's preserving the integrity of the game, maintaining competitive equity, and continually improving on player health and safety. That's where we kind of focus our efforts. So I'll talk a little bit about some trends we have that we like in the game, and then some things that obviously we don't like as much and we're trying to address. The trends we like in the game are the themes of the game, right? So we had 6 new playoff teams this year. We like that a lot. It's a streak of 34 seasons in a row where we've at least had 4 new playoff teams. We had a worst to first this year in the Texans, which shows you in our league that you are just that far away, depending upon where your team is and the breaks you may get. And so hats off to them. 25% of all games, the winning team was trailing in the fourth quarter. We like comebacks. We don't like when we're part of them, but we like when we get them. Statistically, what gives us concern a little bit is scoring. Scoring this year at 43.5 is still above an historical marker, which has kind of been that 43 mark. But we were at 49 points per game during COVID, and we went to 45. We went to 43.760, and now we're down to 43.54. So we spent a lot of time trying to understand that. I do believe the kickoff proposal this year will impact scoring, because I think it will impact field position by at least 3 to 5 yards. And in doing that, you definitely impact scoring. So that's one thing we've looked at. Troy talked about replay assist. I will say that we believe replay assist has worked very well for us. We did use the same kind of approach as we use on a lot of things, which is just this idea of kind of going slow and letting it grow and not starting too fast. I think we've done that in replay assist. It's gotten better each year. It's gotten more predictable each year. And I think we'll try to expand it a little bit this year. But I think replay assist, by and large, has served us well. The 2 rules that I'll talk about before we go to Q&A with all you guys is let's talk hip drop, right? So hip drop's been on our radar for a number of years, brought to us by Health and Safety. The thing I like about Health and Safety today versus I've been on the committee a long time, when I first got on the committee, is it's no longer about watching video. It's no longer about having either a player or a trainer or a coach recount for us how the injury occurred and what we could do to prevent it. It's about data, and it's about that data tied to that tape showing us exactly how the injury is occurring. So the one thing I want to say about the hip drop is we're not prohibiting what everybody calls the hip drop, because the hip drop can come in many different fashions. It can be a drag down from behind. There can be a lot of things that go on that would look like this hip drop tackle. This is a specific type of a tackle where a player literally grabs and then unweights himself, meaning he lifts himself in the air and then comes down on the either the knee or the ankle. And Troy made the point, the injury rate for us, 20 to 25% higher on that particular tackle. Doesn't happen very often. It's a once a week thing that they find, but that injury to that player is substantial. So a couple things I'd say about the rule. Number 1, we tried to draft it very specifically in the language. And number 2, we were very quick to say, listen, it's hard to see all the elements of the hip drop in one continuous action. So the number 1 thing we have to do is get a rule on the books that we can enforce on Monday and try to get the technique out of the game. It's a little bit of where we started with use of helmet. We knew it would be hard to see all the elements of use of helmet, but we knew we had to start somewhere with something on the books in order to educate players of what's allowed and what isn't allowed. And that's what we believe we're doing here. This is not a play where a smaller person is trying to tackle a bigger person. That's not what we found, and that's not what the play showed us. This is a play where the person that's getting tackled really is defenseless at that moment when that person has unweighted themselves and falls. So that's why we recommend that rule with the backing of the Health and Safety Committee. I'll go quickly onto the kickoff, and then I'll let you guys go to questions. Where are we on the kickoff? Well, the kickoff is over the years, we have gotten all this data from Health and Safety that said, listen, the kickoff configuration is too dangerous, and we need to find ways to make the play safer. And we just have not been able to find a way to make the play safer. We have been able to make the play more of a non-event, i.e. touchbacks, but we've not made the play safer. The injury rate remains right at the same historical levels it has been at. The one thing that jumps out at me and jumps out at us as a committee is that when you go back to 2010, you looked at 416 touchbacks in 2010, and you looked at 45,000 return yards in 2010. That's in one season. We are now at 1,970 touchbacks. We went from 416 to 1,970, and we've gone from 45,000 yards of returns down to 13,000 yards of returns. We've taken too much out of the game. It's too exciting of a play. And so we use that phrase, we don't want to lose the foot from the game. But I also think we don't want to lose special teams. I think special teams has been a part of our game for a long time, an exciting part of our game. And it feels like special teams, especially when it comes to the kickoff, has been away for a little while, but really, it really hasn't. It's much more of a recent effect. But that line of demarcation in 2010 is when all of a sudden those touchbacks started to go up. This year in the Super Bowl, you had 13 kicks, 13 kickoffs, all touchbacks. 12 of them the ball did not land in the field of play or the end zone. It was out of the back line. So to us, this was the time. The play will feel different and radical because it doesn't look like the typical formations we've had before. But this play has been used, and we've seen it in the XFL for 2 years. And I just want to take this time to commend the special teams coaches because, number one, it's always hard to change. But number two, what they did is they took a play and they made it our own. They created, what we call the NFL hybrid kickoff. They truly re-looked at the formation, re-looked at the start line, put them in the 40 and the 35, not the 35 and the 30, have two players back, let two returners go, change the rules on when the ball hits. All the things that I think are important to making this play better, they did a really good job of. So my hat's off to not just the three guys that led the way, but all the special teams coaches that participated, because change is not easy. And they have come forward and brought what we think is a good proposal. As I say, I think the numbers speak for themselves, and the time is now. With that, I will turn it back to Brian and any questions that you all may have.
Okay, it's time for some questions. If you do have a question, please use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. Once called upon, please unmute yourself and let us know who you're directing your question to. So let's let people put on the raised hand, and we'd ask you to go pretty quickly with your question, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. Let's begin now with Mark Maskey, Washington Post.
For whoever wants to jump in on this, Richard Troy especially, the kickoff proposal is obviously a big change and a lot for people to digest. What is your feeling going into the meeting on the chances of getting 24 votes, and also the chances that it can be resolved at this meeting in short order rather than maybe have to carry over to May?
Troy, you want me to take it? I got it. So let's just say this, Mark, we've lived our lives on 24 votes. Anytime you introduce anything new, it is not the easiest thing to do. And plus, it's the membership's right? I mean, they got the opportunity to ask questions, to be educated. The one thing I would say about this isn't the first time these teams have seen this language or this. They've seen it for probably 5-6 weeks because they're special teams coaches. It wasn't just those three guys that drove this rule. It was by meeting with the special teams coaches, because our special teams coach came to see me a couple of times. So teams have been somewhat informed. To your point, though, there will definitely be discussion, a lot of Q&A, and does that lead to 24 votes? We will see.
Troy, did you want to add something?
No, I was just, literally, I think Rich said it best, and we'll dive into it with the coaches and general managers to get all their questions answered. I think what's remaining, Mark, I would just say, it's really clarity around rule enforcement, on penalty rule enforcement. I think many of the clubs that I've spoken with, obviously the membership will have to decide this, but I do believe the work that Rich alluded to, us just being completely clear with the coaches of how we enforce penalty enforcement, I think would bring some clarity and resolve to just the direction that we're headed. But I feel good. I do believe we can get it resolved during this annual meeting and not have to push it out to May, June.
Okay, let's next go to Ben Volin, Boston Globe.
Hey guys, thanks for doing this today. probably for Rich, but if anyone else wants to jump in, the kickoff proposal, what parts of the proposal reflect what you liked from the XFL play and what reflects what you felt needed change from the XFL play? And also, the touchback on short kickoffs is all the way to the 40. Why is that part of the rule?
Ben, touchback on a short kickoff is not the 40, it's the 35. It's out of kickoff, out of bounds remains the 40, which is the current rule now. 25 yards from the spot of the kick, which is the 35. So it's kickoff out of bounds, 40. Short kick, meaning don't make it a landing zone, right? Okay, that's considered like kickoff out of bounds. So that could go to the 40, but a touchback goes to the 35, if I explain that right. Here's what I liked, okay? We liked the formation because we believe that we have to reduce the space and speed that this play was historically. This was a great look and a ceremonial play when people ran down there, and it just was the space and speed created a injury factor that it's time for us to change that. So I do like the formation, the fact they're 5 yards apart. I think what the special teams coaches did a great job of is showing us that putting one returner back there would lead to too many games and too many people trying to do things with the football. Two is a much more sound way to go, specifically with our kickers. And then I think I like the way the play starts for us, the way they've said it, as opposed to the way it was in the XFL. The XFL, if the ball landed in the landing zone where it's legal to kick it, but not caught, then all of a sudden the coverage team would not be allowed to run for 3 seconds. And it just didn't look right. It didn't start right. It didn't feel right. In this case, as soon as the player touches it or it touches the ground in that landing zone, everybody moves. And I just think that it makes a little more, we can officiate it better. And I think the look will be better. And I think it will be cleaner. I think that we've got to see our game with our athletes and this play, because for us to tell you exactly how it's going to go, we don't know. I think we have a pretty good feel by the coaches, but our coaches are really good at scheming things up, and we will definitely see some things that will create some excitement this year. But I do like the changes and the tweaks that they made to the other play.
Let's go next to Jonathan Jones, CBS.
You guys got me? Hey, there we go. Sorry about that. Rich, I think this is for you. There was a 3-year high on coaches' challenges this past year, 3-year low on challenges saved by video assist. I'm trying to sort of reconcile if replay assist has gotten good and is getting better, why are the coaching challenges up and the video assist down?
Yeah. Okay. Good. It's good. It's a good question. And number one, replay assist. We put a guideline in there that said, we don't want you assisting after 20 seconds. So as soon as the play clock hits 20, you're out. Okay. And so that's just a limiting factor. The coach challenges went up and they go up. It seems to me we looked at this almost every year in the same reason, which is catch, no catch. And it's that fact that you can't in that quick time get that shot of whether that ball touched the ground, whether that foot was on the white, whether that foot did get all the way down, whether the body part hit. And that has driven those numbers. And I just believe, because we talked about this at length, I believe coaches have become more comfortable in the first half challenging some of those issues than they used to. And because I don't think there's worried about having that second one be their last one. And I think that used to be a limiting factor. So to me, I don't think it's because replay assist isn't working, because I think replay assist is working. But I think there is a limit to replay assist because we don't want to mess with pace of game. And I do think that the coaches now, they all have their own kind of consultants, experts, whatever you want to call them, in the booth that are watching the monitors, and they definitely are challenging more. And as I say, it's on catch, no catch.
Next up will be Jory Epstein, Yahoo Sports.
Thanks, Brian, and for Rich, Troy, either way. The NFLPA released a statement yesterday opposing the ban of the hip drop tackle the way y'all have written it up due to concern about how clearly that rule will be taught and how consistently it will be enforced. What's your response to their concerns? And more broadly, do you think the current rule system with the competition committee includes the right amount of player input?
Roy, you want to go?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been in that position before as a leader of the Players Association and involved in many of the meetings. There's always going to be resistance from the player when you talk about removing things. There's going to be resistance. I respect that. There was resistance in moving the blindside block. There was resistance removing the crackback block. There was resistance in removing the attack block. There was resistance in removing the horse collar. Here, again, and I mentioned it earlier in the opening, durability and availability is the number 1 and 2 assets for any professional athlete, in particular the football player. I have a technique that causes 20 to 25% injury rate when it occurs. I respect their position, but as gatekeepers of the game, and we've discussed this with some of the greatest players and defenders who have ever played the game of professional football. This is something that we have to remove. The intent is not to throw more flags, but the intent is to examine during the week and remove that style of play away. Second, the latter part of that is I would love, and we always include player feedback, player involvement. It's a complete player-driven. We believe a player-driven and coach-driven league. The more player involvement, the more informed we are in decisions. And lastly, I would just say it's so important for we as former players, and many are involved leading that charge with the co-chairs of our player safety committee, led by Ronnie Lott and Curtis Martin, Orlando Pace, and that group. It is a phenomenal group that we all evaluate this, and we want to protect these young men from unnecessary risk. Thomas Davis, Darrell Johnson, Mark Murphy, Orlando Pace, Jeff Saturday, Derek Brooks. So we understand the player's position and we respect their position. But I have a 20 to 25x injury rate. It's hard for us at the National Football League to walk out of a room and not address it.
Thanks, Troy. Let's next go to Dave Burkett, Detroit.
Thanks, guys, for doing this. Rich, this is probably for you. 2 things, actually. One, I'm wondering if at any point in the process of the last couple months, any changes were discussed about the reporting system for eligible linemen. I'm alluding to the Lions-Cowboys game, of course. And then number 2, just can you provide some historical perspective on why the trade deadline is where it is and the proposal, I guess, to change it if the committee has any thoughts?
Yeah, sure, Dave. Thanks for the question. No, we really didn't discuss reporting and the procedures for it. I think that we know what those procedures are. I don't know because I watched the play you're referring to and the moment on TV and then heard about it that week. But I can't tell you that I'm fully versed on what Detroit's position was and the officiating department's position was on how it happened. I mean, from a reporting standpoint, but we did not. That was not something that got discussed on the trade deadline. So historically, the trade deadline has been very early in our league, earlier than others, and it was that way always from a fear of we want our league to be the most competitive league, top to bottom, week to week of any league there is. We think from fan engagement standpoint, the fact that every fan wakes up in every city all the way through the whole season, believing their team has a chance and believing their team's all in to win is a great thing. We then moved it, back and experimented with it and then moved it even further and found that, you know what, it actually served us well. It created some trades. It's worked pretty well for us. We're right at, about the 50% mark of the season. Virtually, every team is in it at that point. So basically what you've got this year is 2 teams one trying to move it 1 week, one trying to move it 2 weeks. And it will be interesting to see the discussion. I wouldn't want to give you the committee's position. I would tell you that there was a lot of discussion of it in the General Manager's Advisory Committee, some very strongly in favor, some not. And I will be interested in seeing the discussion. But that has always been the concern, that if you take it too late, then all of a sudden the teams making the trade have different reasons for the trade. One is to win this year, one is to win next year, which that's fine. But when that win next year requires or ends up with a team that's not competitive, then that was always our fear. That has not happened with moving it to week 8. I can assure you of that.
Let's go to Albert Breer, Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for doing this. Troy, I know you and I have talked about this before, but I think most coaches, players would say that the hip drop is maybe a result of rugby style tackling in football and the prevalence of it. And I think most people would agree that that's been a good thing in taking the head out of the game, that style of tackling. Do you guys feel at all, to some degree, with all this stuff, like you're a dog chasing his tail, like something else is going to pop up that's a problem as a result of this? And, attached to this one specifically, have you guys anticipated any potential unintended consequences that are going to come along with the rule change?
I'll begin, Albert. A good question. You know it when you see it, and I do believe the hip drop tackle came, and I would say in the tree of we call the hawk tackle, has been deemed the hawk tackle that Coach Carroll, when he was out in Seattle, kind of introduced his hawk tackle. When all of our efforts was to get the game out, self-included, get the head out of the game. And as this tackle has evolved, it's evolved to tackling behind. And now watching it for 3 years, 3 seasons, you just see some of the unintended consequences of getting the head out, tackling from behind. And what is consistent is that grab, swivel, and that unweighting. And I would just add this, and it was the same way when we talked about the horsepower tackle. It wasn't very popular when it was brought up. But when we think about the last 5 years, the horsepower tackle, the most it was ever called in any single season was 2020. It was called 22 times in 40,000 plays. Last year, the horsepower tackle was called 15 times. 2022, 10. So it's in that horsepower family mechanics. When you see the runner going down, we talk to officials. They feel like they're clear indicators. This tackle we all thought it was happening in space. Most of it is happening in between the hashes. So we feel like we can identify it. But most important, we want to be able to hold people accountable when we see it occur during the week. So the intent is not to put more flags on the field, but our officials have assured us that they can see it with those indicators and call it correctly when they see it. If not, they'll leave it to us during the week.
Okay. Next up, let's go to Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk.
Hey guys, yes, one quick question on the hip drop tackle statistics. I've heard both that it's 20 to 25x more likely to cause injury and 20 to 25%. Is that the same? Because I think that sends a different message.
Mike, yeah, Mike, I can clarify. Just jumping in for everybody. I think that Troy got it. Just to make it clear, we looked at 20,000 tackles, and the hip drop, as we defined it, led to a 20 plus, so 20 to 25 times the injury rate. So 20 to 25 times as frequent as a typical tackle to lead to an injury that led to time loss. So we were talking about, players missing practices, players missing games. Frequently, those were major time loss injuries, disproportionately compared to a run-of-the-mill tackle that led to an injury. You're talking substantial foot and ankle injuries. And in fact, we first stumbled upon, Mike, the hip drop tackle when we were studying high ankle sprains as an engineering group, and saw that this type of tackle kept showing up as a causative factor towards high ankle sprains. So to give you an idea of the severity of the type of injury we're talking about. But to answer your question correctly, 20 to 25 times is the answer.
Okay, next up, let's go to Kaylin Kaler, The Athletic.
Hey guys, I want to go off of Dave's question, just more specifically about the trade deadline proposals. What is the reasoning? Like, why are there two different proposals here, one after week 9 and one after week 10? And then a second question, Indianapolis's proposal to make any foul reviewable inside of 2 minutes. What's the conversation been like around that, and how much does that reflect on, you know, their opinion of the accuracy of officiating?
Okay, so where do you want me to start with that one, Brian? Let's start with Indy's proposal, right? I wouldn't give you, our opinion on it. I would tell you that it's been suggested before as far as challenging of any foul. And it's always historically been a big leap for the membership as far as calling and having somebody go look and review a foul where a flag was put on the field. Doesn't mean that they won't have a chance to argue it and present it, but it is a big challenge that way. Obviously, that is what we did on defensive pass interference for that 1 year, and we reviewed those fouls. But that's kind of where Indy is. And what was the first question, Brian? What were we talking about?
Trade deadline.
Okay, trade deadlines. I would say the reason there's two proposals is literally those two teams see it differently. One wants to add 1 week later and one wants to go 2 weeks later. You'd have to ask them why they proposed it that way. But it is, and as I say, it's been debated, talked about. I think right now you don't see the historical pushback that you would have seen years ago about this trade deadline has kind of gone away. And week 8 has become pretty accepted. It'll be interesting to see if the needle moves and we go to week 9 or 10.
Okay, let's go rapid fire here as we're trying to get to the questions. Rob Motti, AP.
Hey, Rich. I was wondering, what's the thought process behind restricting the onside kick to the fourth quarter and having teams have to identify that, and especially if scoring being down is a concern, wouldn't allowing teams to onside kick with the surprise element kind of allow that to potentially improve?
The formation doesn't allow for the surprise element. So that's the problem, right? Is the one thing, there are always consequences to any time you make a change. And the way we're setting up the formation and putting people on the other side of the 50, there's just no opportunity to have a surprise onside. Our feeling was in the fourth quarter, and this was brought to us by the special teams coaches and by a lot of people in the league, is let's keep the traditional onside kick formation. We don't have any real injury data on it, and let's just limit it to the fourth quarter when they can line up and do it. And so that's why we wrote it that way.
Okay, let's go to Atlanta. D, Orlando Ledbetter. Go ahead, D.
Yeah, nice red helmet there, Rich. Background.
Thank you, big dog.
Hey, how do y'all balance the concern over lower scoring with, we've seen the development of a quarterback position and the quality of play issues that some players brought up last year?
Well, first of all, I say that lower scoring, we've looked at a lot of things, D-Led, a lot of things. And, defensive penalties, that always contributes to lower scoring. Number of drives are down a little bit. What defenses they're playing. There's a lot more of two safety shell defenses being played, limiting the big plays. To your point, there are a lot of quarterbacks this year. Maybe it's in the top 5 all time of the most quarterbacks that started a game. Was that because of injury or was that because they got replaced? We looked at a lot of things. I would say we're not alarmed. We believe that, like I say, if you look at our analytics people and rely on what they've told us, we do believe that if you move the start line of the drives on, let's call it 1,500, 1,900 kickoffs now, that you're going to see a change in scoring. You will see more offense just by start position, and we'll keep monitoring as to the other factors. But I would say that we spent a lot of time. 43 points is not a bad place to be. It's just we'd love to see that number be closer to 45 or above.
Okay, let's continue here. A couple more. Let's go to Olivia from Philly Inquirer.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for doing this for Troy or Rich first. There's no rule change proposal involving the push sneak. I was just kind of curious where things stand with that, if there's any formal or just plans to talk about the play at the meeting this weekend. And then for Jeff, just having an extra year to compile more data, is there anything that you learned about the play and any injury risk it might pose compared to a standard sneak?
Jeff, you want to talk about injuries?
With this, Brian.
Yep, go ahead, Troy.
So the push play, Olivia, was one of our 3 or 4 focus core areas that we were monitoring this season. When we met, we discussed it immediately after the Super Bowl. We actually talked about it throughout the duration of the season as I report into chairman and the committee every 4 to 5 weeks on different things that we're seeing. The push play was one, and it was a consensus that we cleaned some of the things up, officiating up front, but the play was tried by more teams than we saw in recent years, and that Philly did it well. The Eagles, they executed this particular play well. Health and safety still have concerns of the what ifs. Can we still protect that player that is now flying over the top? So there are still concerns of how do you defend the play where you're not posing players to unnecessary risk. And after lengthy discussion with both the Player Health and Safety Committee, Health and Safety, the Competition Committee, and frankly the GMAC, it was best to say, leave it alone. The Eagles do it well.
Yeah, you know what? Nothing really to add to what Troy said. There just wasn't the sort of injury data that would give the committee an opportunity to make a decision. Concern, sure, as we've discussed, but not the kind of injury data that Troy described and that the committee would be looking for.
Okay, let's go to Zenny for a quick question.
Thank you, Brian. Hi. Quick question regarding Proposal 2, Article 3, Paragraph 2. Team players deemed not to have touched a kick if such touching occurs in the immediate vicinity of the line in an attempt to block the kick. What does immediate vicinity mean? We've been arguing that all day long.
So you're talking about Philadelphia's proposal?
Yes, sir. Yeah, because is it, a foot, a yard? And why is that proposal there? What's the intent?
Yeah, but Philadelphia's proposal, and I don't know which part of the rule you're in now. Philadelphia's proposal is to eliminate the first touch spot, right? Mm-hmm. And that is that rule that let's just take a punt play, right, where the ball gets punted, the covering team touches the ball, and the return team picks it up, but they do not fall on it, they don't possess it, they don't down it, I should say, and the return team then picks it up and actually can take the benefit of that spot or what may happen, and without regard to turning the ball back over. So it's always been a quirky rule. It's been there forever, and I think that's what Philadelphia is trying to say they want to get rid of.
Thank you.
It was also, Rich, I would add, it was really to clean up. It was to clean up that play as well, right? Because we don't see it very often, just a handful of times a year, if that.
That's right. Let's go 2 more questions. Tony Grossi, Cleveland.
Okay, will the Philadelphia opponent in Brazil be named next week, or will you just give it to us right now?
Jeff, I'll leave that to you.
I'll take it. I won't give it to you right now because I don't happen to know it, and I'm not sure anybody else does either. So it would have to be decided, I guess, between now and next week if we were to give it to you then. But typically, the schedule's announced around when the schedule's announced, so I think that's probably the timeline we're working against.
Okay, let's wrap it up. Bring us home to Sean from The Athletic in Las Vegas.
Hey, I had a question about the proposal from the Eagles for the resolution to, add tenths of a second to game clocks at the end of, I think, the final 60 seconds of each half. Do you have any elaboration on the reasoning for that and what the potential pushback could be for adding that to the game clock?
I think the idea was to match us with basketball and put it in that realm. I think that We talked about it a little bit. I think they've talked about it in Philadelphia. I think that proposal will end up being withdrawn.
Okay, thanks, Rich, Troy, and Jeff Miller. Appreciate the patience today, and we look forward to seeing you over the next couple days. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So that's the meeting, folks. For them, we can. What'd you think, Seth? We kind of got our question addressed. You know, you got yourself on mute there. Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah. Well, we got a question addressed. We didn't sort of. Well, no, it was addressed, definitely. But what I'm saying is, I still don't know what the vicinity means.
Well, it's because if I'm not mistaken, he's the president of the Falcons.
That's right.
So
Rich is a long-time good guy. I've known Rich in this capacity. I don't know him like super well or anything like that, but
I think he was only able to speak on that other rule so much because the Falcons put their input on it. Like I think they're the ones that were asking for the rule change, but for Philly's rule, like somebody else asked a question about Philly's rule, like because I think Philly has two of them, and
yeah, Rich said the one that we were talking about regarding the vicinity. They said they wanted to get rid of that. You know, yeah. But what I'm saying is, I still don't know what vicinity means. You know, and that was interesting. I was half joking when I put that out there. What did you think of the whole thing?
I thought the whole thing was pretty interesting. A little vague to like. I mean, I felt like they could have just kind of like answered those questions through a news release.
Well, I think the intent of this is really to allow the media to address different questions.
Yeah, that part was. I mean, the first initial part of it seemed a little. I mean, that was just formalities, I suppose. But I thought everybody asked some pretty good questions. Some of them were like pretty specific to certain rules, which I thought was good. But then also at the same time, they didn't have the people. You know, like there wasn't any representative from Philadelphia that knew exactly how to interpret their rule to really answer, you know, your question. And then there were a couple other questions about Phillies.
Well, that's Rich's job. Rich's job. He's the intake specialist, right? So everybody comes to him. His job is to know why the rule is there. What, like, for example, with the Rule 2 from Philadelphia, he says, well, you know, I want to get rid of it. In other words, regardless of what vicinity is, they want to get rid of the rule.
Right.
Okay. But Rich's job is to be that person because, I mean, just basically for this reason, it's unwieldy in the middle of a meeting, in the annual meeting, to have everybody there literally trying to hash things out at the 11th hour.
Mm-hmm.
Should have been hashed out before, right? So instead of, you know, so now what you need is you need one person, and Rich has done that. He's been that person for a long time. I would say arguably a generation. Yeah. You know, he just looks young. But but that's the way it's been gone for a long time. You know, and the information travels faster because of text message and video and all that, you know.
Right.
The idea. But but the idea now, what I heard coming out of the meeting was Damar Hamlin. In other words, we want to avoid a Damar Hamlin situation. Okay. Because he could have died on that field.
Yeah. I think he actually was clinically dead for a moment. I don't know how long.
Yeah, it scared the heck out of everybody because we've all feared that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, no one wants to see that happen. And with the situation where players are faster and stronger than they've ever been, and then guess what? 5 years from now, they'll be even faster and even stronger.
Yeah.
At some point, Well, you have to change. You have to adjust the rules to save players from themselves, given the nature of the game. And then at some point, you have to change the nature of the game. That's why flag football is becoming so popular. So if you're saying to me at some point, do I see, sprinkling, some flag elements to professional football? Yeah, I think, but not now. I think maybe 20 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gradually getting there.
I mean, that's what I've heard for the past 10 years, is that we're slowly going to make the rules, and eventually there'll be, no pads, and it'll be flags, and we're playing two-hand touch. And
I don't know if there'll be no pads because of the fact that collisions sell.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, my bad. Of course, there'll still be pads.
Right. But what I'm looking for is what I saw in the 1979 edition of Pro Magazine that I got at the Raiders game. Raiders, it's a 76 actually. Raiders, Pats, the Darryl Stingley game. And in that Pro, there was an article about what the football NFL uniform of the future is going to look like. And they had a photograph of the Rams player cartoon wearing this outsized helmet. You now see that outsized helmet, but it's used in practices, and you see the inside of it with all the kind of panels and stuff. At some point in the future, that's going to be covered over with a helmet.
Yeah.
And it's going to save player from collisions and also neck problems because of the way it's designed. You need that and yet be super lightweight. Okay. And that's needed because now you can't make it too big because it'll affect throwing for a quarterback. If you think about it coming out here and you got to do all that, right?
Right.
You want to throw it back and it's hitting your helmet. It's like, hey, what's up with that? But it has to be of a design that does the job of preventing a head injury and trauma. And we haven't really got there yet with the current designs. The current designs, to my view, should be more like a flak jacket in terms of it. And that's really what the intent is of what we're seeing with the padded ones. It's like a flak jacket,
Yeah.
Cover it over, make it look neat so that it can be sold. And that's where it is. And again, this has to do with the fact that we're healthier as people. We're transforming ourselves through modern medicine very slowly, and the babies that are coming out now are healthier than the babies that came out before, and everything else. So, and that's the way that is.
Another interesting thing that I got out of the meeting, I was taking some notes. The replay assist is someone asked a question, and they said the replay assist is down, but the coaches' challenges are up. Why is that? And Rich's response was, it's for a catch. It's on a catch, no catch basis. That's the reason why the challenges are up. And he was saying that you can't spend time replaying every little is his foot in, is the hand, the technicality of the catch, that's like the timing of everything. So I just thought it was interesting how he said replay assist is working, but it's limited. And they advertise, however many cameras are, at the Super Bowl or in each stadium. They have the NFL 360 now, and they got the sky cams from the rafters and stuff. And I mean, I know they have these guys in the replay booths. I mean, I feel like if the number one reason is catch, no catch, then to me, I'm looking at the referee, because the referee must not be doing their job efficiently enough if every single coach is having to challenge catch, no catch.
Right.
It shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Because the challenge, and that's another reason why, if it's going to be like that, I'm totally all in favor. I see, I feel like I have Dan Campbell vision right now. I'm understanding. Because if you're if you're wasting a challenge on a because the ref said, "Oh, it's a catch," like, well, that's a waste of a challenge to me.
Yeah, it is.
Because now I'm having to do the ref's job, and now we're wasting game time, losing my momentum, and that is a spiral effect of how the Lions could effectively lost some of those close games.
Mm-hmm.
2 seasons in a row now.
So let's do this. The NFL sent a copy of the agenda for the meeting, and let's set a time, perhaps this weekend or tomorrow, to go over it if you want. And
I'm free tomorrow in the evening. Otherwise, I think the weekend should be pretty good.
We'll work it out off camera. But hey, everybody, thank you for joining us for a very fun and different excursion. And I want to thank Brian McCarthy of the National Football League for allowing me to live stream this and also get a question in on behalf of Zenny 62 Media Incorporated. And thank you, Seth, one of our great vloggers and personalities of Highlight Hendo on YouTube and Zenny 62, for joining me. So, as I say, Raiders. All right, stick around in the background, Seth. Hey, everybody, thank you. We'll see you.